Well, good afternoon, all, and welcome to the Austin Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sororities Red Bag Lunch and Learn series focused on retirement. On behalf of our chapter, our president, Robin Blackman, my co-chair, Sarah Avis Gibson, and I, we hope this will be beneficial to you as you look forward to retirement. It's never too early to plan. I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Ms. Priscilla Cisneros Oliveira, Community Education Director for A Plus Federal Credit Union. Priscilla, thank you again for being our partner for our financial series. You've definitely been a benefit to our chapter members, and I hope that you will be a benefit to the community. So Priscilla, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, and welcome everyone. And thank you all for attending. I know it's lunchtime, so thank you so much for joining us and taking time to learn about this really important topic. And so I want to start by saying a little disclaimer is I am not an investment advisor. And so today's webinar is really for educational purposes. It's meant to be thought-provoking. I'm going to share a lot of data, and the goal really is just to kind of start thinking about retirement and thinking about the considerations as well. So with that, we will get started. So we're going to talk a little bit about retirement trends, what we're seeing. So each generation will face unique retirement challenges. And we will start with millennials. So this is my generation. So I just want to highlight, there's a lot of information here. This is from Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. They do a survey of their workers. This is from 2019. There's a lot of numbers in here, but I want to highlight a few. So with millennials, 71% are already saving for retirement in a company-sponsored 401k or similar plan, or outside the workplace. 10% is the percentage of the annual salaries that millennial participants are contributing, and 53% expect their primary source of retirement income to be self-funded through 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, so on and so forth. So some of the challenges that millennials have faced is the Great Recession, right? In 2008, a lot of things happened, and perhaps this is the time that many of us were graduating. So, it was hard to get a job. We have paid a lot of money for our education. Perhaps some of us are graduating with lots of student loan debt. So that delays buying a house, and all of these things, again, are intended for us to build wealth. And so some of these things aren't happening, or they're not happening as early as they would have for other generations. With millennials, there are frequent job changes, which sometimes means that we're dipping into those 401k accounts. So lots of challenges. And again, just kind of thinking that it may be far away. And so we can delay planning. With Generation X, so some things that I want to highlight. So this generation started saving for retirement at age 30. So this is actually higher than that of millennials, which was 24. 8 is the percentage of their annual salaries that this generation contributes to their retirement account. So again, a little lower when compared to the millennial generation as well. And then 32% have taken a loan, early withdrawal, and or hardship withdrawal from their retirement savings. So again, with millennials, most of us think that we're self-funding our retirement. This may not have been the case for older generations. So they may have started later, started contributing less and kind of been working their way up. So some of the challenges, again, the Great Recession, if we think about, even if we think about COVID, if you have retirement accounts, we saw a dip in those balances. And so this was the exact same thing that happened in 2008. And so for a lot of the older generations, they may have not recovered completely from that downturn. So Social Security, concern about that and the possibility of it going bankrupt, not having those funds. The timing of buying a home, perhaps they bought a home right before this housing crisis and ended up being upside down on their home, so owing owing more than the value of their home. So too many other financial priorities, and we'll talk about this through the presentation, is, perhaps we're focused on paying debt, or doing other things with our money where retirement really isn't a priority. And then, as we saw with many of this generation taking out money from their accounts, there could be retirement leakages, right? They're not keeping that money there and letting it grow. And then baby boomers. So this is my parents' generation. So 7 in 10 expect to or are already working past age 65 or do not plan to retire. And this is a very important statistic, as we'll see later in the presentation. Age 35 is the median age that this generation started saving for retirement. So again, millennials 24, Gen X was 30, baby boomers was 35. So a little older than the previous generations. And then 10% is what this generation is contributing to their plan, the median amount. So again, lots of numbers, and I can definitely share this presentation with you later as well. So some of the challenges, again, Great Recession, these balances could have seen that downturn and never quite recovered. They had Depression era parents, so maybe their parents were frugal. Their retirement looked very different than what we envision retirement being today. They started seeing the decline in benefit pensions, right? If our parents had these pensions, they were pretty set, versus generations now. A lot of us don't have that. Changing definition of retirement, again, just thinking about how retirement looks these days. I think most people work thinking, in retirement, I'm going to get to do all the things that I didn't do. And so thinking about what retirement looks like, that could be vacation or just having fun. And obviously, that's expensive. So, and the last point is health and retirement. So again, we could start seeing our health deteriorate, and that of course will impact our retirement and our plan. So we're going to go into, again, more statistics and just kind of start thinking about things. So one of the ones that we saw on there that is that most people, or a good majority of people, plan to work or only semi-retire. And so here's a quote from an EBRI survey. Prior to the onset of the financial crisis in 2008, about 84% of survey participants retired either earlier or no later than 3 years after they expected to retire. But after the economic downturn, only 59.3% followed this pattern. So really 2008 had a big impact on retirement for future generations. And so here are some more numbers. And I want to point out that this orange section is I plan to work part-time. This dark blue section, I plan to work full-time. And so what we see here is that more than half of all workers plan to either work part-time or full-time, right? And this is an average of all of the different generations. But as we can see, kind of the older that we get, the more that we, I think, at least plan to work part-time. But here's what happens. So again, there's a disconnect. 4 in 10 retirees retire earlier than planned, right? So while a lot of us, more than half of us, tend to work, 4 in 10 retire earlier than planned. And that could be due to their company, changes in their company structure. 35% was because they had a health problem or a disability. Some could afford to retire earlier, but I think that's more rare. So again, maybe you have to take care of a family member. Perhaps you need different skills, so things change. So there's definitely, again, just a disconnect between what we hope for and then what actually takes place. So what does this mean? Is that if we plan to work full-time or part-time, we're planning to work longer, we're planning to earn longer, and we're planning to save for a longer period of time. And so when something happens where that's not possible, then we're not able to save as much as we hope. Perhaps we have to consider taking Social Security out early, and then there is a shortfall in retirement. So again, today is all about presenting this information just so that we can start thinking about, how this could potentially impact our retirement plan. So Social Security, if just to kind of talk a little bit about how that works, is you have to reach your full retirement age in order to qualify for your full benefit amount. And so your full retirement age depends on when you were born. But in this example, we're going to use 66 as the full retirement age. And so again, if you have this downfall and you have to suddenly turn this on, you're going to have this reduced amount, for the remainder of your life. So in comparison, so if 66 is your full retirement age, you could have $1,000 benefit paid monthly. If we take that out at 62, we can see that it's $750, which could be a substantial amount, right? Because we have this fixed income, and this is, for the remainder of our life. And of course, every so often that could be adjusted. Like I just read this morning that there was an adjustment for cost of living, that they're planning to do that for Social Security. So, but again, you're going to take less money versus if you delay Social Security, your benefit can actually grow. So you can see here, we're at 1240 at 69, about 1300 at 70. But again, will we be able to get through that, make it to that age, is the big question mark that nobody knows. People are carrying debt into retirement. So again, one of the generations, this was an issue, is that they have other financial priorities. So this is something that we can begin to tackle now in preparation for retirement. So here is another quote. So while improving in many respects in the most recent years, the overall trends in debt are troubling as far as retirement preparedness is concerned, in that American families just reaching retirement or those newly retired are more likely to have debt and higher levels of debt than past generations, specifically those in the 1990s. So this is again from EBRI research and surveys. So again, things are changing. Not quite looking the same for our parents and our generation. So we just have to, again, do what we can to try to tackle this. So about 6 in 10 workers consider their level of debt to be at least a minor problem. Right, so at least a minor problem. 4 in 10 consider their debt to be a problem. This is from 2020. And we can see here that this has actually increased. And I'm always curious to, with the pandemic, it looks like, at least for retirees, again, we have a fixed income. This has increased. Their debt is, being a problem. And it looks like this didn't change very much for workers. But again, that's something that we have to consider, is that in retirement, there's no other sources of money. So what can we try to do now to kind of solve that issue is, number one, consider refinancing, right? If, for example, you have a home that you purchased around 2008 times, or maybe when interest rates were higher, then perhaps refinancing now that interest rates are lower, or perhaps now that your credit is better, can help you save money. And when we think about interest rates, even a small percentage adds up to thousands of dollars. And sometimes we don't think about that, but you can always talk to somebody and compare the cost benefits, right? How much would it cost me to refinance, and how much would I be saving from refinancing? Consolidation. So this is something that we might see with credit card debt, for example, or personal loans. If we have a lot of credit cards, a lot of personal loans, those tend to have really high interest rates. And so if we're able to get, one loan where we're giving one monthly payment and we potentially have, a better interest rate, better terms, then that can help us just get through that debt. Because again, with credit cards, it can be, a cycle that's hard to break just because it's so expensive, so costly. And then we do have some strategies for paying debt as well that we can try to use. So one of them is the roll-up method. And with this method, we list all of our debts. This is something that I highly recommend. I do this myself. You list all of your debts, what your balance is, your interest rates, your minimum monthly payment. The goal is just to make the minimum monthly payment. And if you, for example, find in your budget that you have an extra $100 to give toward your debt, then give it to, again, the one that's costing you more. In this case, credit card A has an 18% interest rate. You put your $100 toward that, pay the minimum on everything else. Once you pay this balance off, now you don't suddenly have $115. Now you're applying that toward your next highest balance, which is credit card B. And you continue to do that. This is a roll-up method until you're all done, right? The other alternative would be to take those $100 and instead apply it to the debt that has the lowest balance. So this is more of I think a mental thing, right? We like to see things being marked off and being eliminated. So if you're that kind of person where you're like, I don't know if I can see, stick to it and not see progress. So this might be better for you. So again, minimum payment on everything else, apply your $100 to that first balance and continue to then move those funds to the next balance. So again, a $500 balance could be much easier to pay off than some of these other things that you'll just continue paying. And you're going to be eliminating a payment that you no longer have to make every month. So building your wealth. So thinking about retirement, there's a lot of unknowns, right? We don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know how much our money is going to grow. We don't know at what age we're going to retire, what the cost of living might look like. Income before retirement, the total amount that we'll have saved, how we're going to fund retirement. There's a lot of question marks. But one thing that is important is your life expectancy. And again, if we're thinking about retirement, if we retire around 65, 66, if we live until, 86, that's 20 years that we're in retirement. So that is a really, really long time. So here we have some numbers that are provided by the Social Security Administration. So a man reaching age 65 today can expect to live until age 84. A woman turning 65 today can expect to live until age 86.6. So women do tend to live longer than men. And about 1 out of every 3 65-year-olds will live past age 90, and 1 out of 7 will live past age 95. So if you are that fortunate person, that could be like 30 years that you are in retirement. And again, just having to make do with the funds that you have. So people expect their retirement to last about 18 years. Again, planning versus reality, but their savings to last for only 10 years. So most people kind of know that they're going into retirement with the shortfall. So here's this is from Go Banking Rates. And it says more than half of Americans will retire broke. This is from that study. But here is what people have. So we can see that 42% of millennials don't have anything in retirement savings. Gen X, 32% don't have anything. Baby boomers, about 30%. So at least 30 to 40% of people don't have any savings at all. And then we start moving down to 10,000, so less than 10,000. So, and then 10 to 50. So millennials, again, they're the generation that thinks, this is way in the future. I don't have to worry about this, but the earlier we start, the better. But we can see, what the balances are by generation. But again, more than half of each generation do not have savings or have less than 10,000 in savings. So what do they think? It looks like I had a bit of a delay there, but it looks like we are all set now. Okay. So again, that was what they have. This is what they think they need, right? So on average, the median that we think that we need is $1 million. And we can see that it changes, by generation, and we can see, what the breakdown is, that 30% of workers think they need less than 500,000. But again, a lot more money is what we think we need than what we currently have. So what does this mean? We need to save, right? Make saving a priority, rework your budget to incorporate saving and make sure that we're contributing, trying to bump up those contributions yearly. Again, looking at our debt and seeing how we can reduce that so that we free up our money for the future. If we are age 55 and older, we are also able to do catch-up contributions. So you're able to contribute a little bit more to your, IRAs and such, so that you can take advantage of, any tax benefits that those accounts offer. You can meet with a financial advisor to develop a strategy, again, just to talk to an expert, see how you're doing, see if there are any changes that they recommend that you implement. And then one is avoid taking from retirement savings. Again, with your 401ks, you may be able to borrow against them. With certain accounts like Roth accounts, you can take out money for a home, for a college education. So let's try not to do that, because again, it's very hard to replace that money. And this is really just for our future. And a lot of the times, like with college education, you can take out other loans, make it work. But with retirement, it's that money, you'll probably not see it again. So this is very, very important. So basic considerations, things to think about, right? What kind of retirement do you want? I was talking to the panelists earlier, and we were talking about how, oftentimes when we think about retirement, we're thinking that this is the time that we're going to get to do all the things that we didn't get to do when we were so busy working, right? So this is a time that we're thinking that we're going to travel, and, we're going to go and maybe spoil, our loved ones, our grandchildren, if we have any. So, you're really thinking about how fun and great this is going to be. And if that's the case, we just have to make sure that we're planning for that, because again, all of that is going to cost money. So when do you want to retire? Again, based on that age, we will have to adjust. And the nice thing about this is, I know with my 401k, for example, there's calculators, and I go in there and it tells me, how I'm doing with my projected retirement date. Or some plans have a target fund date where you put, I want to retire at this age, and it kind of adjusts your portfolio to meet that goal. So there's a lot of tools out there that we can use at no cost, right? That's just at our disposal. But again, you can always talk to a professional and just get more insight and understand those things a little bit better. And this is the big one. How long will retirement last, right? We said 20 to 30 years is a long time. And again, if your income is fixed, we have to consider that. Like my dad used to say, I used to go take your mom on a date, and hamburgers were like 25 cents. That's what's called inflation, right? Is, what used to cost us $1 last year now costs us $1.03 this year. So, the cost of everything always goes up. And if our paycheck does not go up, then we also have to think about that reduction in purchasing power. So that would be like inflation adjusted. So that's something else to kind of factor in as we're planning. So crunching numbers, we can estimate retirement expenses. So again, kind of thinking about, will our mortgage be paid off, or will we still have a mortgage? Will we have other payments? What would our health care expenses look like in retirement? So thinking about those things will kind of give you an idea of how much money you'll be spending, so that you can again aim to save enough to cover that. So estimate your retirement income. Again, there are so many calculators, that you can find on the web that allow you to do that. If my current income is this and I'm saving X percentage and it's growing at this percentage, this is how much I'm going to have by age 65. So we can absolutely use those tools just to gauge how things are looking. So identify the gap. So this is where we see, how our expenses compare to our income, and if there's a shortfall, then that would be our gap. And again, account for inflation. A lot of calculators have like a little check mark that says like adjust for inflation. That will give you, again, just a better idea of how much your dollars will actually be able to buy in the future. So here's an example of a calculator that we have at aplusfcu.org/calculators. So again, kind of similar to what I was saying earlier, you put your age, the age that you're hoping to retire. You put your annual household income. So we just plugged in some numbers here. I put that we're saving 8%, that my goal is that I currently have 100,000 in retirement savings. Again, this is like above what we saw. Most people don't have this. Expected income increase. Let's say I expect to get a 2% raise every year. I want to replace 80% of my income. So that's the thing is, some people may not need their whole paycheck because maybe they'll see a reduction in expenses. They don't have their mortgage. Their budgets are going to change. Maybe they don't have an auto loan. So 80% is what I put here. And then the years of retirement income, again, how much we want it to last. And I can see, where it says my retirement saving runs out at age 73. So this was my calculation, but again, you can definitely go in there, put in your own numbers and see what the results show for you. And I can see here, my plan provides $568,000 when I retire. And I didn't, there's different things that we could do, but just an example of what that could look like when we're calculating that. So sources of income, again, we might have our 401k or our pension, and then we might be able to collect from Social Security if we have enough credits. So there are different sources of funding. And I also want to point out that, Social Security has their own calculator. So I went to socialsecurity.gov. You can probably search QuickCal. But what I did was I put my date of birth, clearly not when I was born, but an example, current earnings, $70,000 is what I put. And I put, what would be my benefit? So if you actually want to, again, get an estimate, you can go and do that. I was able to see that if I retired at age 62 with my current earnings, I would get about $1,300, at age 67, about $2,000, and so on and so forth. And I know Social Security sends out every so often just an update on your own earnings, or if you have an account with SSA.gov, I created one myself. Again, you can go in there and see your earnings and verify that everything has been reported accurately. And you're able to, they provide an estimate of, what your Social Security benefits might be or your disability benefits might be. So, if you're contributing to Social Security or have contributed to Social Security in the past, then I encourage you to also, take a look at that and see what it shows, and just make sure that your earnings are also reported accurately. So again, the gap, right? We're trying to estimate our expenses, trying to see from these sources that we have, what we can expect as far as income, and then we can start to figure out, how much more we might need to try to make up for in the years to come. So projecting, what this example is meant to do is just kind of give you an idea of, what one kind of large number might look like over the course of many years. So in this example, we have a $400,000 lump sum. So let's say we are able to, save throughout the years, we're able to reach this $400,000 balance. That balance would allow us to draw $30,000 each year for 25 years. This assumes that your funds will remain in the account, that it's going to grow at 6%, which I think is realistic. But again, just to put the numbers there so we can actually picture that, right? $400,000 is $30,000 a year for 25 years. Now, something that I mentioned earlier, again, that cheeseburger used to cost 25 cents. They cost a lot more today. So of course, we have to think about how inflation is going to impact our money. And so what this shows here, so we invest $5,000 annually, we get a 6% return, and the inflation rate is about 3%, which is about average. And so it kind of shows the difference, right? We can see what our balance is versus the adjusted for inflation balance. So we can see, for example, that we almost get to about 500,000 at age 65, but if we adjust for inflation, that may end up looking something like $200,000. So this could be pretty scary. It's not meant to alarm anyone, but again, it's just to have this information so that we know, what challenges we might face, and that we can begin to prepare accordingly. So now what? We want to gather our financial records, right? Think about, as we mentioned, maybe we've moved from employer to employer, or maybe we have different sources. We have Social Security. Maybe we do have a benefit. Teachers, for example, have their TRS. So start thinking about, the different sources of money that we would have for the future. If applicable, again, review those tools that are available through your employer or through your own accounts. Go over your goals with your significant other. And try to encourage. When I talk about my husband, he started grad school, and so he delayed retirement, and then when he finally got his big boy job, he was like, I don't have enough money to contribute to retirement. I'm like, no, you have to contribute now, and if we're going to get our employer match, and then you're going to bump it up every year. So if you're like me, encourage your partner to do that with you, right? Because you're going to go through this together, and it's going to be helpful that you both contribute. If applicable, meet with your human resources department to explore other retirement options. So maybe if there's multiple plans, or if you do have a 401k plan, oftentimes they have advisors or people from the company that are available to speak to you to talk about the different funds, and just make sure, again, that you understand everything. So take advantage of those resources. If this is like another language to you, do use those resources, because they're there for you, and oftentimes they're free to do all of that. Meet with a financial planner or counselor to review your goals. Some banks, so our credit union, for example, we have a wealth management team, and so we offer free consultations to our members. So if your financial institution offers something different or something similar, then maybe that's something that you can consider, is just have a conversation and see, where that goes. And then also, so when we're thinking about our future, we can't just think about, the money. We also have to think about other things. So in order to secure everything that we have worked for, I do like to just mention, right, that we want to make sure that we have proper insurance. So life insurance, especially if we have little ones, or especially, if we're in a one income household, if something were to happen to one of, an individual in the family, what would happen to our loved ones? So just making sure that we have those coverages in place to, make sure everybody's in a good place. You could look at disability. Health insurance is obviously very important, and we've seen it, of course, in the past year and a half. Homeowners insurance. It's funny because I feel like we don't really think about these things until you need them. And so last year, when we had the hailstorm, we had two cars that were damaged, and our roof was damaged. So our roof was like $3,000 deductible, and then our house or our cars were like at $1,000 deductible. We ended up getting savings. We got some discounts, but anyways, like I haven't really thought about, what is the likelihood that both of our cars will be impacted. And so I went into my policy, of course, later, and like it doesn't even cost that much to, have a lower deductible. And so I absolutely changed that after the fact. But those are the kinds of things that we want to think about, if something were to happen, what is my deductible? What is this going to cover? With the home, does it factor in the depreciate? There's so many things to think about. So again, another kind of area that you might want to review. Automobile, again, all of these things are just important because, again, these are assets that we have. They cost us money, and so we want to make sure that we protect it without having to spend a lot more money on that. Some important documents. Our will, again, if we have children, you don't want to have the court, take your children to decide who they are staying with. So definitely something that we want to have. Or if you just have your assets and you don't want to have, your family need to go to court if it's contested and pay lawyer fees to have something resolved. If, we can simply have this legal document in place. So our wishes are respected. So there are, of course, you can go to an attorney and get this worked out. But if you're wanting something in the meantime, there are sites, I think one of them is like LegalZoom, that allow you to draft this up and print one yourself for free. So it could be just, again, something in the meantime while if you have a lot of assets, if you have kids, you want to maybe talk to an attorney. But there are other options. So again, asset distribution, guardians, your power of attorney, or living will. So what would you want or who would you want to help you, right, if you're not able to make decisions regarding your finances or regarding your health? I know it's hard to talk about this, but after COVID, we lost a lot of family members. So I started talking to my mom about, what she would want us to do if she were ever, in a situation where she can't make decisions or, like she's having to have assisted living and so on and so forth. So very, very hard conversations. In the case of my aunt who passed away, there weren't discussions about any about what they would have seen and who they wanted to, give what. And so I think even though those are hard conversations, it's just good to do that proactively. And not everybody can do it. So just find the person in your family, and in my case, me, that is willing to have those conversations. And beneficiaries. So that's another thing that we have to look at is, looking at our 401k, looking at our life insurance, right? Who is on those who is the beneficiary? Because oftentimes we, put someone when we're newly employed, and then things change. We might get married, we might start a family, and the person that you put 10 years ago might still be your beneficiary. And the beneficiary listed on an account will trump anything that your will says. So it's very, very important to periodically review those and make sure that they're updated. So communication, know where all the assets are. I know my parents, they say I have this life insurance policy, this is where we have this or that. So have that communication with your partner or loved ones, right? Know where those important documents are for, your retirement plans or your insurance policies or anything else. And again, just talk about your wishes. Let me see how we're doing on time. So just a couple of kind of housekeeping things. So we do offer monthly webinars at A+. So if you're interested in seeing what's on the schedule, you're free to visit aplusfcu.org/workshops. These are free. You don't actually have to be a member to attend them. And then we also have this great service through our partner Balance that offers financial education courses. So if you are wanting to learn more about, retirement or wills or insurance, then you're welcome to check out the library of resources that we have. Again, just simply say that you're with A+ Federal Credit Union, and this is all free to access. And then with that service, we also get free financial counseling. So you can always call one of our Balance hotlines and talk to them about retirement or budgeting or looking at your credit report or, learning to navigate your debt and really anything. So you just call, it's free. That's a good service to keep in mind. And then the last thing I just want to briefly mention is we do have this special promotion. So if you are interested in joining A+, if you meet certain criteria, open certain accounts, you can get up to $50 through the end of the year. So if you're interested in that, you can visit aplusfcu.org/con50. That is all I have. So we can look at questions.
Thank you, Priscilla. Such a always great information, very valuable information, and we appreciate you presenting that. So we're going to take some questions. We have a couple here in the chat. The first one, is there any calculation on the entry of the pandemic or the such that might suggest we include to help with predictions?
I really haven't seen anything. The only thing I recently saw was the life expectancy did decrease slightly because of the pandemic. But other than that, I haven't really seen anything that we should kind of incorporate in those projections. So I don't think so.
Okay. And one of our guests would like for you to, can you put the communication slide back up? I think there was some information she wanted there on the communication slide.
Okay.
Okay.
This is the one.
About the assets, know where your assets and documents are. Does that help? I think that was from one of our members. Okay, let's see. And this session is being recorded. Someone asked if the session was being recorded, and you can view that on our YouTube channel. Next question, is there a standard calculation for savings? Is it 10%, 20%, 30% or lower?
That's a great question. So I think most financial advisors or investment advisors recommend that you save anywhere between 15 and 20%. So that's, I know personally, that's my goal. And so when I'm looking at my retirement contributions, I look at what my employer is matching. And so together I'm like, okay, here's where I'm at. But there's a lot of things that you can find out there too that kind of say by this age, you should have, 1 time your annual salary or 3 times your annual salary. So that's kind of what I kind of use as well. But again, if you want to go into it further, then I recommend that you speak to a financial advisor. But those are good starting points in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Could you speak more on why retirement benefits listed with companies would take priority over items listed in your will?
I think it's just I'm not a legal expert, but I think it's just the legality of it, where you're basically saying, this is the person that I want to have take over funds in this account, whether it be a bank account or an insurance policy or any other kind of account where a beneficiary is listed. That's always what they'll look at. So yes, with any type of account that has a beneficiary, you want to just make sure that you review it.
Okay. And is there a college savings plan that you can recommend?
I personally haven't used any, but I know 529 plans, college saving plans, are something that we always kind of mention. And with those, there's different types. Basically, it's kind of like one is an investment type of account for college, where you're getting a return, and it's not guaranteed. There's others where it's a prepaid tuition plan, so you're kind of buying your tuition at current rates, because of course the cost of college is always going up. So that's one area that we could look at, is a 529 plan. Another one is a Coverdell education savings account, but those do have some income requirements, and we can only contribute up to $2,000. So, but these are all things that your financial institution may offer, or if you have, again, an investment company that you work with, and you can always inquire about those. They usually don't cost very much to get started.
Thank you. Question here. How do you recommend distributing savings? Like not all in one account, or what?
That's a great question. I think it depends on what the savings is for. If you have like short-term savings, right, I'm going to have to pay something, then perhaps, we're just trying to get a regular savings account, or maybe we have a certificate that has, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year term that pays a little bit more than a savings account. So I think it's just, when are you going to need the funds? And then depending on your timeline, put it somewhere that it's going to give you a nice return. So that's the only kind of thing that I can think of, is depending on the horizon, we can put it in different types of accounts.
Okay. And the last one here is, what was the site again that you listed the various available classes?
Yeah, so aplusfcu.org/workshops. So we do them monthly. Our partner Balance also offers different topics monthly. But we do have a library of recorded webinars on there, and we've talked about things like buying a home, getting out of debt, credit, understanding. You'll be able to be beneficial there.
Okay. Unless I missed one, I think I got all the questions. Let me double check. Oh, in reference to the question about the standard calculation for savings, the follow-up was per check, correct? The percentages, is that per check?
So most advisors recommend. Okay, it looks like I was having some connectivity issues again. I apologize. But okay. I think most advisors recommend 15 to 20%. But again, this is not a limit, right? If you're able to do 30%, then by all means, you do 30%. But yes, that's just kind of a goal that you can have, is at least 15 to 20%.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Do you have any other slide you would like to highlight as a closing or final comments?
I will leave my information here. So if you do happen to think of something later, first and foremost, I want to say that I love this group, because you all are always so engaged, and it's just great to come and present. And oftentimes I do get questions after the fact. So if you do happen to think of something later, then feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'd be happy to assist.
Well, thank you again, Priscilla. We appreciate the partnership throughout the years, and you always bring us valuable information It's helpful, and it's always good for those of us who are retired to review, reassess, and gather new information. So we value the partnership, and we thank you again. Like to thank our president and members of the Austin Alumni Chapter for the support of this Red Bag Lunch and Learn workshop, the Greater Austin community members. And we do have some guests from out of town that have joined us, so we appreciate your support. Our next Red Bag Lunch and Learn is going to be January the 11th, and the topic is going to be managing finances in the midst of a crisis. So if you're not following us on Facebook, please like our Facebook page and follow us at Austin Alumni Chapter of DeltaSigmaTheta.org or Instagram at DSTATX, also on Twitter at DSTATX. And last but not least, to our fabulous tech team, thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you. We thank you very much. And to my awesome co-chair, Synovia, would you like to have a word?
No, thank you, Priscilla, again for the partnership, and thank you to my fabulous co-chair, Avis, for co-hosting with me today.
I'm not sure if our president, Robin Blackman, was able to join us. She was going to try to join. I sent her a message. I don't see her in, but on behalf of the president, again, thank you to everyone that was able to join us, to our presenter, and to everyone. We appreciate you, and we look forward to our next Red Bag Lunch and Learn on January the 11th. If there's nothing further, this concludes our workshop. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all again. You all have a good one.
Thank you. Have a great day, Priscilla.
Thank you.